podcast video for you guys. We're going to be talking about the Bears coaching hires this past week. Ever since Ben Johnson was announced as head coach, he had to fill some slots in his coaching staff and everything like that. And we'll get into this week's edition of the UC chat, talking about the last week with the Bulls and the Hawks with you guys, and go over each of the games, and we'll dissect the wins and the losses for you guys. So let's get kicked off. My name's Tyler. I'm joined alongside.
My name's Daniel. We're back. Good to be back. A week again.
How you doing, man? Good?
I'm doing fantastic. This last week went by so quickly. It feels like I stood up after the podcast was gone. A day went by, and then we're sitting back down again. So the week definitely went by really quickly. There were so many things that happened in Chicago sports, everyone. Obviously, as you know, Blackhawks and Bulls are playing 6 games each week. So there's multiple games to talk about on that front. And then, as you know, like Tyler said, the Bears are having a third straight best offseason in the NFL.
Indeed.
So it's just important to, dive into that and let you know the DC hires, OC hires, passing game coordinators, just get you familiar with the new faces that we're going to see next year. And you know what, Tyler? One first thought before we get into the Bears discussion. Man, I wish Hard Knocks was this year.
Dude, yeah, I've been reading this
what
on
a
Twitter,
waste.
Man.
What a
waste.
was a waste. What a waste.
Dude.
It was so cool, but none of those guys are going to be back on it. None of those guys are on the team.
Yeah, well, if you think about it, Matt Eberflus won't be back. Obviously with Keenan Allen, we'll see if he comes back. Basically the whole entire coaching staff for the Bears won't be back.
I wonder if Ian Wheeler or like Adrian Colbert, I wonder if even they're going to be on there.
Dude, I agree. I hope Ian Wheeler gets a shot to potentially, come back to this roster. I know Ryan Poles did hint at it, be like, we're excited to have you back next year. Obviously, after tearing his ACL. But basically, let's get kicked off, man. We're going to, like you just kind of talking about, Hard Knocks and stuff like that. We're going to go right into getting into our first topic today, which is discussing the Bears, the Bears discussion. The Bears. So let's get you guys kicked off with that. So basically, we talked about it last week. We were chatting with you guys for about 30 minutes about, the new head coaching hire, Ben Johnson, for the Bears. We are beyond, happy with this. He was pretty much one of the first head coaches, hired. He was at the top of everybody's list. The Bears secured him, and he's a younger face. He's 39 years old. He's going to be a younger head coach for for the Chicago Bears this upcoming season. His first time being a head coach, being from an offensive coordinator, but now it's his time to build his coaching staff, for his team. So Ben Johnson over the last week has been pretty busy. He needed to fill a lot of key holes. There was only one coach that, what we'll talk about at the end of this, there was only one coach that was retained from the last coaching regime, and that was the special teams coordinator, Richard Hightower. So basically thinking about that, there's a lot of holes to fill with this. There's a lot of offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, running game coordinator, offensive. There's, Dan, there's a lot of coaches, right, man?
Oh, yeah. There's too many almost, but
a lot of coaches.
They all needed a job.
Yeah. Yep. So let's get right to it and talk about, who Ben Johnson hired for offensive coordinator, defense coordinator, and we'll talk about the other coaches that he filled in. So let's get you guys kicked off with the offensive coordinator. So Ben Johnson decided to go to younger face with the offensive coordinator spot. He did. Let's kind of, backtrack a little bit. A lot of people that are kind of talking about this guy might not be the best fit. Let's talk about that press conference. Ben Johnson did reiterate that he is going to be calling the plays on the offense for the Bears. So this hire is basically somebody to develop, help, help this offense out, kind of help them get into position and make sure all the, everybody's kind of set in stone kind of. That's what the role of the offensive coordinator is going to be this year for the Bears. And the offensive coordinator that Ben Johnson hired, his name is Declan Doyle, new Bears offensive coordinator.
Declan, yeah.
Is it Declan? I
think it is Declan. I've never heard of Declan.
Declan. But yeah, Declan Doyle is the new offensive coordinator for the Chicago Bears. Do you want to kick off with some stats saying about Declan Doyle?
So Declan Doyle, the good old Declan Doyle. Let's just try to visualize the age gap that usually offensive coordinators will have with other offensive coordinators in the league, right? The average age is usually going to be 40 to 60 years old, an older gentleman. Declan Doyle is 28 years old.
That's crazy,
and
man.
He has just become the youngest active offensive coordinator in the NFL. And to think about 28 years old, I'm turning 26 in 2 months. So pretty much imagine me, being the lead on offense. Being the lead on offense. That's and it's spectacular no matter what direction you look at it. If you look at it from how does it fit the Bears, look at it from his perspective, that's a lot to do in your career and start off as an offensive coordinator at 28 years old. So round of applause for Declan in that regard. But here is a little bit off of his resume. So he was at the University of Iowa as a student assistant from 2016 to 2018. I believe I was still in high school. And then
we were still in high school, man.
We were still in high school.
We just graduated in the middle of his term at Iowa.
Yes.
So
that's
crazy.
That's wild. And then after that, he went straight to the New Orleans Saints, and he was an offensive assistant for Sean Payton between 2019 and 2022. I believe Sean Payton, was he gone in 21? I think
2021 was the last season that Sean Payton coached. So basically,
so
he
was there
stuck
for
around with the
roughly
Saints for about one more year once Sean Payton left for the New Orleans Saints. But yeah, and then he, Sean Payton, a year later, after being retired for a year, decided to take his head coaching, duties to Denver. And guess who followed him there? Declan Doyle. So Declan Doyle was the tight ends coach at Denver in 2023 to 2024. So pretty cool. He liked to follow, Sean Payton around. He, wanted to develop with him. Sean Payton is regarded as one of the greatest, not the best, obviously best head coach of history, but he's regarded as one of the greats, for head coaching.
He's definitely a good coach to follow around. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's up there.
So obviously, yeah, Doyle was a prospect from the Sean Payton coaching tree. He was with Sean Payton for 3 years in New Orleans and 1 year in Denver. And for all you, like I said, for all you Bears fans basically freaking out about this hire, please don't be too alarmed. That's all I'm going to say. This is kind of a developmental process for him. Ben Johnson wanted younger minds to come into this, team to help him out. Besides the defensive coordinator, which we'll talk about right after we talk about Doyle. But basically, he did confirm that, obviously during his press conference that Ben Johnson will be calling all the offensive plays in that book, being the head coach. So Doyle's here to, help out, assist as much as possible. But
Doyle his main position is to do the nitty gritty, right? Because Ben Johnson is going to be calling plays and coaching. So Declan's job is to pretty much not only run the offense to be prepared for Ben Johnson's playbook, but to, again, do the nitty gritty, as Ben Johnson said, someone to work the late nights, someone to, build the schedule, someone to really make his job easier. So I think that's an idea as to, Tyler and I talked about this over Discord a few days ago when the hire first happened, and we were excited about it because there's a certain energy you get from a guy like Declan where his next stop isn't to be a head coach, which is usually happening with a lot of coordinators. His job is to literally be his biggest position of his career. He's going to try to prove himself. His job is to be the best person to understand Ben Johnson on offense, right? He's his protege. And so I saw this tweet earlier that I found really funny. Ben Johnson hired Ben Johnson. That's what people are saying, because Declan Doyle is such a young offensive mind, that he has played in several big key games with the Broncos or the Saints. So he understands how things got to roll on offense. I'm really excited about it.
I'm excited too, man. Obviously for all the people, I was like, he has no experience. He had experience, with Sean Payton in the Saints. He had experienced a little bit for a year in Denver, being the tight ends coach. I like this hire for the Bears. The only other hire that I would love for offensive corner, but it was reported a few days ago that he's going to stick around with his team, would be Cliff Kingsbury. And that was kind of rumored, toward the end of the season, as soon as they made a playoff push and made it to the NFC title game. It was rumored that Cliff Kingsbury is going to stick around because, why not? If you make it to the NFC title game, why would you, that's kind of like why Ben Johnson stuck with, the Lions for another year. He's like, he wanted to run it back and, try to get that. But I love this hire by the Bears. It's going to be interesting, but I love this hire. Actually, I really do, but not as much as I love the other hire by the Bears, which we'll get right into, because new offensive coordinator Doyle. Now we had to fill that defensive coordinator spot. And there was a lot of names flowing around on who would help out, but this was the main key name that, the Bears were talking about. This was like, as soon as Ben Johnson was hired, the next tweet by like Adam Schefter and all these other people were like, this is the guy on the Bears radar. And we ended up getting him, and I am super excited by that. His name, if you guys don't know, is Dennis Allen. Dennis Allen. I'm super excited by this hire by the Bears because he has experience. That's what you need from defensive coordinator, experience on that end. And he had experience with head coaching. So, Dan, you want to talk about a little bit about Dennis Allen?
So Dennis Allen, I'm sure you've all heard about him around the rumor mill. I mean, he was all over the place last season and the season before that. He was definitely rumored to be the favorite for Ben Johnson out like early, right away. And he was one of the first defensive coordinators to be signed or to be interviewed. There wasn't a lot of defensive coordinators at the time. They were, staying put or transitioning to a different team in the same division. But he made a huge switch going on from his team in the Saints to the Chicago Bears. And I think he's going to match in perfectly because we love these kind of high energy guys. So he did become the defensive coordinator. He was option number one. I don't think there was ever a second option to replace him. I never saw many other rumors of other people, but Dennis Allen spent the last 3 seasons as the head coach in New Orleans when Sean Payton first left. Though he was fired after just 9 games this past season, it marked his second stint as head coach in the league, following a 3-year run with the Oakland Raiders. So he has a ton of head coach experience. Unfortunately, he did get fired, and I don't really think it's his blame. I think that's a team when Derek Carr was still going through injuries, and they didn't really have the defense solidified. So that team was not winning 10 games that season, so I don't think he would have retained his job anyway. But it's nice to see him on our side. He got that position because he was offered it. Let's just get that straight. He became a head coach because he was offered that position. And it gives you another idea as to it's important for the Bears to hire people that aren't willing to leave the next season.
Yeah.
If he builds a great offense or great defense, we don't want another Vic Fangio type of situation where there's another team out there that has a better defense or stuff like that. We're giving them the full reins to one of the best top 10 defenses in the league. So that's definitely gonna be exciting.
Some people kind of freaking out, obviously, Dennis Allen, he's fired as head coach for the Raiders and the Saints. Kind of like we've had, multiple people, comment in our chat, Peter being one of them, saying that, some people aren't great are great coordinators, but not great head coaches. That would be Dennis Allen with his defense and everything. So obviously head coaching was not his kind of, specialty. He got fired off of 2 teams, but defense is one of his specialties. That's why I'm really excited about this hire for the Bears.
Yeah. And I'm not sure if this is a stat. I hopefully it's true or not. But they said that in the 6 to 7 seasons of him coaching as a coordinator, his defense was always top 5 in the league. Never bounced out of top 5. And then the most recent team he had, which was 2023, that was a top 5 defense, and it was the number 1 defensive play rating, meaning that he ran the best play calls on defense through the entire 2023 season. I wish I remembered to put that stat inside of here, but I kept reading that the entire week, and how even though that was a year ago, 2 years ago now, I mean, that was a pretty impressive stat for him to have. But
yeah, so basically, a little bit more about Dennis Allen with the Saints and stuff like that. He was the defensive coordinator for the Saints for 7 straight seasons. So he has a lot of experience on the defensive end before he got promoted to that, head coach hire in 2022, ended up getting fired a season later, in the middle of the season. But look at it. Look at all the experience, Dan. Look at it. He's got, 7 straight years of
years.
Great with it. Experience is key when it comes down to especially coordinator position. We could talk about the other end, with Doyle being not having a offensive coordinator experience, but that's a different story. Ben Johnson is going to be calling those plays on the offensive end. Dennis Allen is calling. He's got a little bit of help, with other coaches, but he's calling these plays on defense. And
that's important.
He has experience being a defensive coordinator, experience being a head coach. My opinion, this was a great hire by Ben Johnson. This is the guy who I wanted. Exactly.
There's a reason why he was first on the list, right? It's because even though he's had coaching experience, it didn't go all the way, north. It usually went south, but that's going to help Ben. That's going to help Ben in understanding how to coach this team from both sides, defense and offense, because he has to do both. So incredible hire. I think I would look at him almost as a co-coach rather than just a defensive coordinator. Because Dennis Allen is definitely he's going to have that role.
Yeah,
and there's a lot more people.
There's a lot more coaches, a lot more people. But to end off, with Dennis Allen today, he actually did meet with the Bears reporters today. Talking about what kind of schemes and what he's going to bring to this, Bears team. And he did say today that he wants to bring an aggressive style of defense. And he did mention one player on this defense who he loves. He loves the way he plays, and he says he's one of the best nickel corners in the game, and that would be Kyler Gordon. He loves him. I love Kyler Gordon. I thought he had an amazing season this season, for all the different injuries that went down. Obviously it was kind of cool that me and you got to meet him at the draft party a few years ago. That was really neat. Like, he just came out of nowhere. I'm like, oh my God, it's Kyler Gordon.
We saw him. Yeah, he was doing a podcast with the Catman, and he was just standing there, and no one was walking up to him because I don't think a lot of people recognized who he was. He was just wearing a hoodie and a Bears hat. And Tyler and I walked up to him, shook his hand, got photos done. Incredible guy. So he deserves all the attention that he's going to get on defense now, because he's an excellent guy, excellent ball player. So it's nice to hear him get that.
Yeah. So obviously, he's really excited about this Bears defense. Obviously he kind of, he saw what happened with us last season. We did really well until Matt Eberflus got fired. He was more of like helping on the defensive end with Eberflus, but I think he's going to bring an awesome style of defense. The Bears, maybe bring back, I don't want to jinx anything, but maybe bring back, that 85 Bears, aggressive defense that we've been looking for. So that would be awesome. Really excited to see what he's going to, pair up and try to get more players. It's going to be an interesting time because, there's one player on this defense that is a huge salary hit right now, and that's Tremaine Edmunds. Tremaine Edmunds is expected, I think, $12 million or something like that. It's a lot, decent amount of money this season. So we'll see what the Bears do with him. But kind of steering away from, the defense and stuff like that. We have a lot of other coaches to discuss. But when we go into these other coaches, we're not going to, dive as deep as what we did with, offensive, defensive coordinator. We'll just give you the main highlights about these people, a little bit about their experience, and we'll basically start it off. So Dan, you want to start us off? Who did we hire first? Basically, not first, but we got a
very, very excited about this one simply because Amon-Ra St. Brown in his podcast was mentioning about how sad he was for him to leave. Antwaan Randle El, which is the assistant head coach and wide receivers coach in Chicago at the moment. He spent the last 4 seasons in Detroit Lions as the wide receiver coach, and you could tell why people loved him because all the wide receivers in that building really performed well because they loved him. They loved his energy. And there was a video that surfaced of him, yelling at Jameson Williams during a play, which was huge because that sort of atmosphere needs to be there for when DJ Moore runs out of a play, or let's say Rome Odunze gets
exactly.
A turnover and his
held accountable, man, right?
Exactly, yeah. Like it's time to hold people accountable, but also to give them the correct amount of praise, right? Like Rome Odunze can't lose a fumble in the game and then act like the game's over for him. Those games are usually always going to be close. So it's important to get these young players and these older players a little bit more momentum each game in there. So obviously he was with Detroit, and so that's why Amon-Ra was really, really upset. He was born in Riverdale, Illinois. So he is a local Illinoisan. You can even call him a Chicagoan. He attended Thornton Township High School in Harvey, Illinois, and that makes a lot of sense as to why he came back to Chicago. This is sort of his home turf. This is where he feels most comfortable, and he also stayed in the division, so he is going to be seeing his old wide receivers twice a year from now on.
The cool story about him that you did mention, talking about the Amon-Ra St. Brown podcast. I watched that video yesterday where he was like basically talking about when he found out that his wide receiver coach was going to Chicago, and he texted in this group chat with all the wide receivers and him. Didn't get a response back. He called him. They obviously Antwaan answered, and he's like, how'd you find out about that? He's like, you found out that I'm going to Chicago? He's like, yeah, I'm going to take that job. So he basically told him straight up. That's cool that, obviously I think a lot of coaches kind of do this as well, but it looks like he likes to build great relationships with his wide receivers, even have group chats with them, which is super cool. Building, chemistry is why, certain teams like the Chiefs have thrived. They've been together for a while. That's why I like how, that what he kind of mentioned that, and he was, St. Brown saying how he was really upset by this. You could tell that he's a great coach, and that's why I'm excited that the Bears got him.
He's got a lot of energy, right? You keep watching the videos of him on the Green Bay or the Detroit sideline. He is yelling, he is screaming, he is the loudest one, and that's exactly what this wide receiver room needs. The offense needs some energy. They need to be held accountable. There needs to be just some level of aspiration there to where DJ Moore doesn't want to give up on a play if he doesn't catch a 15-yard pass on 4th down.
Exactly.
Like, there needs to be some energy there. So I'm very, very excited about that. There's another person that Twitter was going crazy about. Simply because he is also on the younger side. He is someone that you might recognize even from his college football days, right? The new quarterbacks coach in Chicago. Tyler, do you ever remember watching JT Barrett?
Dude, I really don't, unfortunately. I don't remember him whatsoever.
So I'd never watched college football. And to this day, I still don't. But I do remember him playing. I do remember him having all-time records at the School of Ohio State, and he went off. So he definitely is. Now still that remembered.
You say that, man, it rings a bell a little bit.
He holds all the records: most passing yards, most passing touchdowns, most completions, stuff like that. So he was a phenomenal talent that was assisted in Detroit. So he also didn't have a large background in the football world because he obviously didn't get drafted, and so he immediately went onto the stage of coaching. So he is coming from Detroit. He spent his last 2 seasons as the assistant QB coach, and he did a phenomenal job because those QBs in Detroit for the last few years have had some good energy to them. And Jared Goff obviously being the only one, but you got players like Hendon Hooker. Like they have a good atmosphere to them, and they can
Teddy
really
Bridgewater got signed to the Lions
Teddy
too, right?
Bridgewater.
Yeah.
So
Two
he,
gloves.
as a young guy, he can definitely, give energy to Caleb, and they can connect too, because Caleb is just around the same age as us, right? So that's going to be a very, very good hire for them, and keeping everyone young. Can you think about that, dude? Eberflus is older than every single person on this team right now. So that's a phenomenal hiring.
Sometimes young and hip is the way to go, man.
Yeah,
especially with these teams. You can look at teams that aren't that way. The Chiefs, or when it was the Patriots with Bill Belichick. But looking like the younger minds are starting to have a great effect on this league, which is I love how Ben Johnson's going about this right now. Younger minds. That's why I like. We got a few more coaches for you guys. The Bears did hire. We got a new defensive backs coach and passing game coordinator. His name is Al Harris. If you guys don't recognize that name, Al Harris, he was a big player for the Green Bay Packers for a while. So Al Harris spent 5 seasons as the defensive backs coach with the Dallas Cowboys. And obviously, he's a former Cheesehead. He's a former Green Bay Packer. He is one of the most memorable interceptions in Green Bay history. On January 4th, 2004, during the wild card playoff game against the Seattle Seahawks, he intercepted Matt Hasselbeck in overtime for a 50-yard pick six to win the game for Green Bay. He's one. If you talk to any Packers fan, they will remember that play for but obviously it was 3rd and 10. And he intercepted that on that drive. So that was a huge play for the Green Bay Packers. But Al Harris, having former experience, I'm excited by this hire as well. I'm excited by every hire. Ben Johnson. I trust him right now, man. I do.
He's getting a great group of people in the building, and they're people that have changed old teams that they used to be part of. So as you could tell in Dallas, like that is a very, very good passing attack. And then when he comes in with the defensive back, like he has a lot of that built up from those previous teams that he's built or helped with. So he's definitely going to bring that into Chicago. It's all experience, but it's still a young mindset. So he's definitely willing to learn and understand the new ways of the game.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of jobs getting filled on both sides of the ball. Some people are taking both sides of the ball. And here's one that's a new one. I'm actually really excited about this because this was the most recent hire, right, Tyler?
It was. Yeah.
So the new passing game coordinator in Chicago is Press Taylor. Press Taylor spent the last 3 seasons with the Jacksonville Jaguars as their offensive coordinator. And I think the most memorable part of his time is rookie Brian Thomas Jr. getting his 1,200 yards.
Yeah,
it's a big deal
because man, he did. They utilized the younger receivers. Kind of thinking about who do the Bears have younger receiver wise that he could help out. Who's a rookie that just obviously he's building chemistry with Caleb. So Rome Odunze could have a big impact. City of Chicago with Press Taylor coming here. Even think about somebody who's not a rookie who's a younger wide receiver. Tyler Scott could be another key thing. A lot of people said that with Ben Johnson coming, Tyler Scott will have a bigger role because they'll utilize him as the deep ball threat, kind of like they did with Jameson Williams. I know he's not as long and didn't win the Heisman, but that's what I think. So about Press Taylor can make a big impact on the passing game for the Bears.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So Taylor got his start in the NFL coaching in 2013 with the Eagles. So quite a while ago, he worked his way up to the quarterbacks coach in 2018 and added passing game coordinator title in 2020. The Colts made him the senior offensive assistant in 2021. Did he win a ring with the Eagles? When did the Eagles last win a championship? Was that before 2020?
Dude, I gotta look that. Let me look that up.
It might have been. It would be interesting to see if he's won a ring or not. Simply just because championship experience at any level.
I don't really know to be honest. Oh, 2018. That's when they won.
So he did indeed win a ring in his first year. Yes, not his first year, but his year being the quarterbacks coach. So that's very, very cool. And then fast track into 2022, he became a coordinator for the first time, and that's where he started his reigns in Jacksonville. Obviously, Jacksonville didn't have those prettiest offense. Their quarterback play is a bit iffy. Their wide receiver play, blah blah blah. It's all down the list. But he is no longer offensive coordinator. He's just the passing game coordinator at the moment, which we can be happy about because it's less responsibility. It's more focus on just some specific things. And I see Tyler has some really fun facts here. It's things that I did not even know about him.
I like the fun facts, man. I saw this on Twitter and I had to, confirm it and make sure. But Press Taylor, he does have a sibling. He has a brother. And if you guys recognize that last name, Taylor, his brother is Zach Taylor, the Cincinnati Bengals head coach who's been coaching Joe Burrow for a while. So is really cool. Yeah, they have, coaching experience, the siblings be having coaching experience, but I thought that was a pretty cool fun fact that,
Oh yeah,
Press
that's
Taylor and
awesome.
Zach Taylor are brothers. But, kind of, wrapping it up, we have no more coaching hires that I know of. I've been looking up and making sure that I get everybody, the other assistants and stuff we won't like add in because it's a lot, with all these people. But what, like we said at the beginning of this, the Bears talk, one coach is being retained from the former regime, and that would be the special teams coordinator, Richard Hightower. He joined the Bears back in 2022, where he served as the special teams coordinator for the past 3 seasons. I like this rehire by the Bears. I know he started off a little shaky with, the block kicks and stuff like that, but I like this rehire by the Bears. I really do.
There's a reason he's staying. And special teams obviously is a very important part. And he didn't lose us games last year. It wasn't his fault. He did help us win games, though, through special teams. So I definitely admire this hire. I definitely admire retaining him. Good guy, solid interview. So I'm happy that he's back.
Yeah, I am too. So that's all the coaches we have for you guys. Offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach. Oh my gosh, there's lots of coaches. We just talked about. But
a lot of coaching.
When we get the more, more word about different, obviously free agency hasn't started yet. But when we get word about different coaches coming to the team, we'll definitely bring those to you guys. But obviously the last week was a big week for Ben Johnson. Getting his hires in. Obviously filling the two biggest spots, offensive and defensive coordinator. And, that's basically all we got for you for the Bears, this time around. But it's basically a coaching cycle, man. Coaching hire. And that's basically where the Bears are at right now. So let's steer away from the Chicago Bears with you guys. And we're going to get right into our Bulls and Hawks chat with you guys. And we're going to get into our UC chat, talking about everything about the United Center, all those teams at the United Center. So we're going to start you guys off with the Chicago Bulls with you guys. Bulls talk with you guys. So Bulls talk. Bulls right now are currently 20-28. They're the 10th. They were 10th place in the Eastern Conference. I looked, and that is currently tied with Philly with the 10th spot. The Bulls have a slight advantage, I believe, over, the division wins or whatever, but they were 20-28, 10th in the Eastern Conference. So let's get you guys kicked off and wrapped up, or summarize, the games that since the last time we saw you guys, since last Friday, that's when we met with you guys last. So let's start you guys off with the first game for you guys. First game I got for you guys, and me and Danny were actually at this game. We were at this game that was last Saturday. This would be the Bulls against the 76ers last Saturday, January 25th. Unfortunately for the Bulls, they did lose this matchup. They lost 109-97, and the 76ers got their 16th win of the season against the Bulls this matchup. Leading scorer for the Bulls this game was Zach LaVine, 25 points, 10 of 20 field goal. He went 3 of 7 from three-pointer. 7 rebounds and 4 assists for Zach LaVine. So not a bad game for LaVine. He got over that 20-point mark, which is good. If LaVine gets over 20 points, the Bulls have a better shot of winning that game. And let's go over some of the stats with this game for you guys. Bulls against the Sixers. The Bulls shot 65% from the free throw line. So that is not a good stat. 13 of 20. And we saw this with our own eyes. Zach LaVine did miss 4 straight free throws at the free throw line. So, and this was in the fourth quarter as well, where could got the team up a little bit more, boosted up a little bit more. You want to get some more stats with this game, man?
Of course. There was also another player that missed 2 straight free throws that got us a free hot dog in the fourth quarter of the Philly 76ers. So I do want to say that even though the game was lost, we did win some things on the way out. So that was very exciting. But the Bulls, other than the Bulls having 20 turnovers and the 76ers only turned the ball over 10 times, the 76ers outshot the Bulls in the paint 54-44. So that's a 10-point differential.
Yeah.
Kind of gives you an idea into the final score. Vucevic was having a solid game, but Josh Giddey was definitely one of the more impressive bright spots of that game. The Bulls were out-rebounded, or the Bulls out-rebounded the 76ers 54-40. So there is a little bit of Vucevic's game, that possession. He wasn't so much on the offensive end, but he was getting the boards.
Mm-hmm.
And the Bulls were outshot in the second half. The Bulls scored 20 points in the third quarter compared to the 76ers' 30 points. And this is the stat that I'm glad you added in here, because the fourth quarter points are the ones that really upset me here.
It was,
so the Bulls scored only 14 points.
That's anytime a team scores below 20, in a quarter, that's usually a bad quarter. You try to aim for that 30 mark, but the Bulls only scored 40. That was a bad fourth quarter for
that's
the
how
Bulls.
much DeRozan averaged in the fourth quarter usually.
And
so
the Sixers scored 29, so it was over, 15. It was 15 more points than the Bulls did in the fourth quarter. So obviously bad second half for the Bulls. That is why they lost that game. But let's talk about certain players that didn't do that well this game that could have affected the Bulls, losing this game. Patrick Williams was a -12 when he was on the court. He only had 2 points, so bad game for Patrick Williams. 1 of 9 field goal, 0 of 4 3-pointer. One of them hit the back of the side of the rim or side of the backboard. I'm sorry. I remember that. He had 4 rebounds and 2 turnovers that game. So obviously me and Dan were there for that game. It was kind of, the first half was great. They kept it within, they led by like 5 points at one point, and then they were down 5 points. They kept it a game, but that second half for the Bulls really did cost them the game, unfortunately. So we did see we did lose. Oh my God, English, Tyler. We did see a loss, but there were certain aspects of the game that looked promising. Zach LaVine getting over 20 points. But yeah, this was also kind of a change for Billy Donovan as well, seeing how Patrick Williams did with the starting lineup again, didn't do too well, -12 from the court. That would affect him in going into our next game. So going into the next game with you guys. So a few days later, so they were off Sunday. On Monday, back at the United Center, the Bulls took on the Denver Nuggets. This was a great game for the Bulls. Yeah. Everyone on paper expected the Bulls to lose because, Denver is 4th in the Western Conference, but the Bulls ended up getting that crucial win over the Denver Nuggets. They won 129-121. I know Peter was at this game. He messaged me. He was like, "Oh, are you working at CHSN?" And I'm like, fortunately, I wasn't there that day, but he did message me. A few of his bets were riding on, Denver money line, Denver getting the win. Bulls ended up getting that win, which was great win for the Bulls, in my opinion. It was an awesome win.
Oh, yeah.
Dan, you want to go into some of the stats for this?
Of course. I mean, this was a huge win. Obviously, I think this was an away game, right? No, it was a home game
at the United Center. Yeah,
so it was a home game at the United Center. The leading scorer obviously being Zach LaVine. Patrick Williams came off the bench this game for the first time this season, and it was sort of a bounce back effort from Williams. So he was plus 16 while on the court. He had 11 points, 8 rebounds, 0 turnovers. Definitely a little bit more of what I'd like to see. I don't mind him that much as a sixth man. Usually Ayo will replace him in the starting lineup or Lonzo Ball. So that was a pretty good idea for him. Williams came off the bench to match up with the Nuggets to player Aaron Gordon, which made a lot of sense in Billy Donovan's schematics and ways to get the ball to other scorers in the perimeter. Because obviously Williams has not been shooting that well. So him coming off the bench means that there's a lot of other shooters out there. So he just needs to focus on getting his own shots and also passing the ball. So he did get 8 rebounds. It's a very lovely number that we like to see from him. It's better than zeros across the board, which is a lot of what his seasons looked like. But it was great.
Yeah, obviously positive signs with Patrick Williams coming off the bench. He's given that spark off the bench. I feel like when he is in the starting lineup, it feels like he needs to do a lot just because he is in the starting lineup. He needs to do more, but we have players like Kobe White. We have players like Zach LaVine. We have players like Vooch that can do the offense. We just kind of need him for his defense if he's in the starting role, but coming off the bench, he's given a spark. It seems like he's getting pass the ball a lot more when he's coming off the bench. So great move by Billy Donovan, in my opinion, to bring him off the bench. And, Patrick Williams, he had a post-game interview with Casey Johnson, and he was smiling the whole time. He's really excited. You can kind of tell that he was very upset by the last game. He wasn't smiling the whole entire time. He was kind of like, finally I got a good game. And, Casey Johnson going for the interview for him did realize that I did have a good game. So that he did realize that. And I'm excited that, he came off the bench and he did really well. A few more stats for you guys with this game. Ayo Dosunmu played very well. He was a plus 20 when he was on the court, 17 points, 6 of 13 field goal, 4 of 7 from 3, and 2 steals for Ayo. And then, another player for the Bulls that, haven't mentioned his name a lot, but this was a great game for him, was Dalen Terry. He had a season high of points, 13 points, 5 of 6 field goal, 3 of 4 for 3, and he was plus 11 when he was on the court. So great game for Dalen Terry.
It's good to see DT getting some time, right? Yeah. DT, he's in that year of his contract that I really don't think it might be his last year on the Bulls. It might be his last year in the NBA. I don't know if his play style is altogether that influential, but it's nice to see him at least get some deserved minutes. And help out this Bulls team, because what have we got to lose?
Exactly.
What have we got to lose? Give him some minutes. So
yeah,
it was nice to see him get the kind of average.
Yeah. So a few more stats with you guys with this game. Vooch did have a double-double. He had 20 points, 10 rebounds. Great game for him. His last rebound to get that double-double came off the last shot of the game. So great job for Vooch. The Bulls shot 45% from three, so very efficient from the three-point mark. And the Bulls, and this is a weird stat that usually when we talked about this with the Warriors game, the Bulls allowed 82 points to the Warriors in the paint. They allowed 84 points to the Denver Nuggets in the paint, and they ended up getting the win. So, very efficient.
Yeah.
I was listening to Stacey Kane at the end of this game. He was very happy about the way the Bulls bench played, giving them the spark off that, off the bench. And so great job by the Bulls bench to keep them rolling when the starters were out. Great game for the Bulls. Great game.
Oh, yeah. Huge. Love to hear about a win. Unfortunately, you'd love to follow a win with a win.
We would love that, man.
On Wednesday, January 29th, which is 2 days after the most recent game, Bulls played the Celtics at TD Garden, which was a away game. The Bulls lost to the Celtics 122-100.
Tough game.
Part of that reason is because Boston is second in the Eastern Conference behind Cleveland, which I'm sure is not going to stay for too long.
And they're a great three-point shooting team, too. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So Boston, by some means, is the best team in the NBA. Some people can argue against that or with that, but this being a tough game, we did beat them last time we played. So it would be nice to get this win here, but unfortunately it did not really go so well. Zach LaVine is currently out for the next few games. So this was the first game of many that he ended up missing. And that's just because of, as we mentioned here, he was out due to a personal matter. His wife and him are expecting their third child together. So usually I would bring up him being the lead scorer in this game because like he is on every single game this season. The tie went between Kobe White and Patrick Williams. Patrick Williams made it up there to tie with Kobe. Kobe had 16 points on 6 of 15 field goals, 2 of 3 from 3-point, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 4 turnovers. The turnover part is a bit tough, but this is Kobe's first game back after I believe he also had a knee injury that he was out for about a month. So it's nice to have him back. And then Patrick Williams off the bench. He had 16 points, 6 of 11 field goals, 3 of 7 from 3-point. So he finally got himself a three-point shot, and then 7 rebounds in 30 minutes. Yeah. He is also leading the Bulls in majority of minutes most games. I know the last game I talked to Tyler after the game we saw versus 76ers, right? This last game where they lost, he put up 34 minutes. It was he led the team off the bench, which is a pretty impressive remark because that means Billy still trusts him in those late game minutes. So important to see from
it was good. Yeah, great. Obviously, like kind of talking about, this is the second straight game that Patrick Williams came off the bench. So he's providing, a better spark off the bench. He's, getting more involved. And if that's what I know he's making $90 million, but if that's what needs to happen in order for the Bulls to, obviously it was a loss for the Bulls. The Celtics are a great team and, without Zach LaVine, but if look at how efficient he's been, man, 16 points, 7 rebounds, he's getting the minutes. If that's what needs to happen, keep on, in my opinion, just keep him on the bench, man, because he's providing a spark needed for this team.
Might as well, right? We got enough offense on the starting lineup, so I'd love to see some more defense on the second lineup. Yeah, it works so well.
So, like Dan said, LaVine did miss this game. Him and his wife are expecting a kid, and that was reported that he is going to miss the 3-game road stretch. So he's going to miss this game, the next game, which is Toronto, I believe, and then the next game after that, which is going to be Detroit Pistons. So
he can miss those games.
He can miss them. Obviously, a very important matter for him. Be with his wife. Expecting another kid. But obviously, Bulls being in 10th, they're not in the first place mark. It's just kind of whatever.
Let him do what he wants. He's also the star of the team, right?
Exactly.
That's why I know
Bulls Twitter is freaking out. Oh my God, he's out this game due to a personal matter. It is a personal matter, technically.
It is.
It's not, obviously, there's rumors. We'll talk about this after this game, trades and players getting floated around, and his name has been flown around around the league with the Golden State Warriors, Sacramento Kings, a few other people. But yeah, so that was a personal matter for Zach LaVine. A few more stats for you guys with this game. Mas Buzelis had 12 points off the bench in 11 minutes played, so very efficient off the bench.
Very efficient.
4 of 6, 2 of 3 from 3-point. Jalen Smith had 9 points and 11 rebounds off the bench in 23 minutes played. The Celtics this game had 9 steals against the Bulls, and the Bulls had 15 turnovers and 19 fouls. So a little rough in that category for the
Yeah,
Bulls.
so the turnovers and fouls is a bit of a coaching mishap, I think, on that point. It's a very good defense versus a mediocre team, and so I think Billy Donovan needs to kind of push the team a little bit to, lower that turnover differential and stuff like that. So 15 and 19 is not what we want to see. It's not going to win you any of those games. But I will say Modest will have to step up a little bit with LaVine out these next 2 games. I think he has a big opportunity to shine. He might have his first game with over 25 minutes played. Who knows? But it would be lovely to go ahead and see him, not in the starting lineup, but definitely insert himself dominantly a little bit more against Toronto and Detroit. I think it's a perfect matchup for him in those two games here.
Yeah, I agree.
Off to this next topic here, right? So those are all the games. We caught you guys up on the Bulls games. They had 3 over the week, and then obviously they might have 3 or 4 over the next week as well. So we'll cover those in the next podcast. But I wanted to bring this up because this is an interesting topic. We're heading towards the trade deadline, right, Tyler? And we could sit here and talk trade mock-ups and who do the Bulls want. None of it even makes sense at the end of the day. So how about we do this in our own way? Let's play What's Their Worth. What's Their Worth Bulls edition, okay? So it's a game where we're going to discuss 4 players or maybe 4 or 5 players on this team, and we're going to give you what we think they're worth right now and what kind of offer we know the rumor mill has been giving them. So first player here, we're going to start with a few obvious ones and then give you a few under, sugar-coated ones here. So Nikola Vucevic, his current projection with the Golden State Warriors was a 2nd-round pick. That is what they said that they would offer Nikola Vucevic.
Yeah, they don't want to give any first-round
at the moment
assets. That's what the Warriors did say. I don't like this man.
So Tyler, what do you think he's worth? What is Nikola Vucevic worth to you at the trade deadline?
Right now, the way he's playing, I know it might sound like a greedy Bulls fan. He's got to be worth a 1st-round pick, maybe.
1st-round pick.
That's 100%. What I agree. The way he's playing. If he was playing like he was the last few seasons, then yes, I would say a 2nd-round pick for Nikola Vucevic.
Yeah,
but
he is a 20 and 10 machine. He's going to put up 10 times 10 better numbers than the center that's putting up right now in Golden State. So he would be an obvious choice, an obvious upgrade. And I'm not going to sit here and say that he's one of the best centers in the league, but you could argue that he's top 10. I mean, he's averaging a 20-10. I think there's only 2 other players in NBA history that would average that number in a season's rate. So he's definitely worth a 1st-round pick. He might be worth more to us than any other team. So does that mean we keep him? Who knows? But I agree with Tyler. He's worth way more than a 2nd-round pick.
I agree too. Now, the next player is an interesting one. We just kind of talked about it, obviously with the trade rumor and stuff like that. Zach LaVine. Zach LaVine right now, his current projection, flown around is that he's worth a 1st-round pick, also a salary dump player from that team. So, and Zach LaVine did already say that he wants to stay in Chicago. He loves the city of Chicago, and he would love to stay. Obviously, players' opinions semi-matter when it comes down to it. Sports is a business, but I do think I don't know. It's hard. 1st-round picks are great in the NBA, but they're not like 1st-round picks in the NFL. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like I would
diamond in the rough is like way harder to find. Yeah.
I would personally love to keep LaVine. It's hard to see these people go because if LaVine goes and Vooch goes, we're going to be a bottom place team in the Eastern Conference. That's the way I look at it.
Multiple years.
How many years can we run it with the same players being the 10th seed? You know what I mean? It bounces back and forth. Very contradicting,
So in my opinion, I think Zach LaVine is worth the 1st-round pick. I think he's worth a 1st-round pick, a 2nd-round pick, and a salary dump player. I throw in a 2nd-round pick in there just because I think his value is skyrocketed right now. As we started the podcast a few weeks ago, first talking about the Bulls, he is in his prime right now. You will not find a better Zach LaVine on earth. Like, he is the best Zach LaVine out there. And he is just a phenomenal talent. His defensive IQ has definitely raised up a little bit. He is the premier player in Chicago, right? He's the best player in Chicago at the moment. That's not obviously like in basketball terms, he's the best player, but he's got to be worth a little bit more than just 1 1st-round pick and a salary dump. But I would advise the same with Tyler. I think keeping him again is so much more worth it for Chicago than trading him away at this moment.
Yeah, we got a few more players for you guys talking about what's their worth right now if they were to be traded. So Coby White, I know that's a name that's been flowing around. Those are the 3 names that we've been seeing flowing around: Vooch, LaVine, and now Coby White. Coby White projection right now, they say about first round pick, but the way he's been performing, it's teams I don't think would pay that first round pick for Coby White. What do you think about this, man?
So there was a report. I'm not sure if it's entirely true. Obviously, you're hearing all about the Suns drama and Butler. There was one report I saw saying that the Suns would entertain the idea of Coby White, that they thought he would be a very good replacement for point guard if they were to move on from Bradley Beal. And their projection that they said would be he would be worth the first round pick, but they don't have those kind of assets. But first round pick is what Coby is worth to us. I mean, he is a phenomenal player these last 5 years. So I would agree with first round pick. I don't know if I'm too keen on trading him just yet because I think he's got a lot more in the tank. And he was definitely one of the best prospects that the Bulls have, utilized. Like when he first came in, we thought he was going to be a simple backup scorer, bench player for Jim Boylan. And then he ended up being a very, very worthy starting point guard. So I think his projection of first round pick is right, but I'm not sure I'm ready to let go.
Yeah, same. Coby White, I think he's improving every year. That's what I think with him. He hasn't been on a downgrade. I know obviously to start this season, he was in a little bit of a slump week to week, shooting 3-point and stuff like that. But, being that projection, maybe second round pick that people are saying, or, the Bulls want a first round pick, I would just like to keep him at this point. I hate to say I'd just like to keep everybody, but that's kind of how I feel right now. But then it's like, like I kind of said, are we going to be that 10 seed team again? Because clearly we've seen what this team, it's hard to say, man. It's hard to see players go. It is. But we got two more players for you guys to talk about. Obviously this is a player that came off a big injury, didn't play basketball in almost like 3 years. Lonzo Ball, his current projection right now is a second round pick if he were to be traded. How do you feel about this, Dan?
I'm really happy with that. I love Lonzo. I think his progress has been phenomenal. And I think the way his defensive IQ has adjusted since his injury, he's playing really well, and he's playing good minutes. He's playing at least a quarter a game. And so I'm really happy to see the way he's playing. I'm not going to give him an extension. I'm not willing to give him an extension. And I know that the extension eligibility that he has, unfortunately, is way too high for any other team to ask for. So I'm happy with trading him for a second round pick. I think that is just another one of those moments where Chicago gave him everything he needed to come back to the NBA to play. And obviously, as you know, the Lakers are the first people to jump on the idea of Lonzo. There's a lot of talks about that a few weeks ago, that the Lakers could definitely use a player like Lonzo Ball to play, fill in their old Alex Caruso role, someone to come off the bench and play some really good defensive minutes. So I'd be very, very happy with letting him go for a second round pick. Yeah. I just don't think he's worth it to stick around this season. He's not going to be here next year, and we're not going to lose him for nothing. So at this point, let's just ship him off to whatever the highest bidder is, and farewell to Lonzo. Hope for the best if that does happen.
Yeah. Now, the last player we have for you guys is a player that did get demoted to the bench because he wasn't performing too well off the starting lineup, and that would be Patrick Williams. Patrick Williams, obviously, there was rumors a few weeks ago the Bulls are shopping and want to get rid of him. Nobody jumped on Patrick Williams. But this is my opinion on Patrick Williams. I know it's a lot of, like I said before, it's a lot of money to come off the bench. But if he's performing this well off the bench, keep him on the bench. I like it. I like keeping him. Obviously, no team wants to jump on him obviously he's making $90 million for a 5-year extension or whatever it is. I like him off the bench. I know you wrote something different down here, but
I said something rude. I feel bad because I wrote this before.
You probably wrote it after
before his last 2 games. Yeah, I said after the Sixers game because obviously me and Tyler being there in person, man, we were just so sick of the way Patrick Williams was playing. Every time he'd check in when we were still down 5. It's like, well, that's not going to help. We don't need defense right now. Yeah. So I wrote here that his current projection is a half-eaten bologna sandwich, and so that's rude. That's really sorry, P. Willie. I don't mean to be that rude. I wrote that obviously a little bit out of spite just because I was a bit upset. 2 second-round picks. I would take in a heartbeat right now if Patrick Williams was offered 2 second-round picks. I would take that.
I would too.
I think he's a phenomenal player. I mean, I keep saying the word phenomenal, but he's an adjusted player. He definitely understands the way that the Bulls defense needs to be ran. But I don't think he's going to fit the Chicago scheme any longer. I think this is his last year in the Chicago uniform. I don't think he wants to be here. I think he can find himself a better position somewhere else. So 2 second-round picks, I'll gladly take. And obviously that would have to come with a salary dump player that is a trade in return because of the $90 million contract. But you know what? A lot of these players that we see here, they could be on the Bulls next year. They could not. But February 8th trade deadline is coming up very, very quickly, right? Is that February 8th, I believe, is a trade deadline?
6th or 8th, one of those. I forgot the day. 8th is Saturday. I think it's the 6th. It's always that Thursday, I believe. So, and
a lot of you, I'm sure, have heard about the whole Bradley Beal situation. That was shot down. There's no way Arturas Karnisovas is going to accept a trade of that high caliber to give away Zach LaVine, and all we get is Bradley Beal and a 2029 first-round pick in return. That's not going to happen. That's not going to cut it. And I think the reason why AK is thinking that way, AK short for Arturas, who knows if he's going to be here in 2029 to use that pick. So he is not trading for those type of assets. He is someone that's going to be trading for win now talent that's even through the draft for next year. So
yeah,
a lot of these players I do love. I loved growing up and watching these players for the last 5 or 6 years, but it may be time to move on. And you know what? I would gladly accept it. Anything but mediocrity. Anything but mediocrity at this point.
I agree,
so,
man.
Let's go on to the next 3 Bulls games that we'll be able to talk to you guys about. So on the 31st, last day of January, the Bulls are facing the Toronto Raptors in Toronto. And then the first day of February, right? Nice February weather is coming up soon, everyone.
Yep.
On Sunday, the Bulls are facing Detroit in Detroit. So they're facing the Pistons. These are both the 2 games that LaVine will not be out. Hopefully, he will be able to return for the Tuesday game on the 4th. That is Bulls versus Miami Heat at United Center at home. Jimmy, we'll see if Jimmy plays. Jimmy's on a suspension right now, so that could be another one of those games.
It won't
he most likely will not be there. So there might be another game that we could squeeze in there before. Sorry, is the All-Star break after that or no?
I don't know when the Bulls or NBA.
I'm not sure if it is either. There might be another game that squeezes in before we have our podcast because we like to do it usually on Thursday or Friday.
All-Star weekend is the weekend of the 16th of February.
Okay, so we have some time still. So just in case there is one more game on there, we'll be sure to squeeze that in for you guys next week. Yeah. But that is all we have on the Bulls. Yeah. I mean, Bulls is a very interesting topic at the moment just because obviously the trade deadline, and every year it seems like we are so close to getting a good deal or something in return. It seems to be nothing. I mean, the last 3 years have felt the exact same. Vucevic, a little bit the trade deadline. It's always been Golden State. It's always been the Nuggets or something like that. And then Zach LaVine too. Zach LaVine was offered.
He's been rumored
Michael
the last
Porter
3 years,
Jr. and a backup player for Zach LaVine. No, I'm not interested in that. Give us something. Give the Bulls something. I know what teams are doing. They're looking at the Bulls and saying, well, they're going to have to blow it up anyway. So why should I be the first one to give them their offer? You know, I agree. I kind of get it.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting, a few weeks coming up for the Bulls, see what happens. Like you kind of said, I don't expect anything out of the Bulls. We've been seeing the rumors for the last 3 years. Nobody's been traded and stuff like that. But it's going to be really, interesting to see what happens with the Bulls and these other teams around the league with the NBA as well. So we'll keep you guys up to date with everything. We'll be back next week, summarizing those games that we just talked about, the next 3. And let's steer away from the Bulls now, and let's get right into our other United Center sport that they have, holding on there, which is going to be our Blackhawks chat with you guys. So Blackhawks chat with you. So the Hawks right now are currently 16, 29, and 5 with 37 total team points. Unfortunately, that is second to last in the league right now. Last time we met you guys, they were still second to last in the league. Right below them is the San Jose Sharks, 1 point right below them. So let's get right into Blackhawks chat with you guys. So with the Blackhawks, the first game we got for you guys was last Friday. So when we met with you guys, they played that night. So obviously we didn't talk about, what happened that night. That was a few hours later. The Blackhawks played the Lightning last Friday, January 24th. Unfortunately for the Blackhawks, they did lose this game 4-3. The Lightning scored 10 minutes into the first period, but the Hawks put goals on the board 2 right after that. Colton Dodge scored his first goal of the season. And also, this was his first NHL goal, so super cool moment for him. This was 4 minutes to go in the first period. That was assisted by Ryan Donato, his 14th, and Nick Foligno, his 10th assist of the season. 2 minutes later, the Hawks scored again. Frank Nazar scored his second goal of the season, and it was assisted by Connor Bedard, his 29th assist of the season. So Connor Bedard getting it done on the passing end again. We see how cool his passes are. Great for Connor Bedard getting another assist on that goal. Basically the score going into the first period was 2-1, going into the first period intermission break. 5 minutes into the second period, the Hawks scored their third goal of the game. So at this point, the Hawks were up 3-1. Louis Crevier scored his third goal of the season, assisted by Frank Nazar, his 5th, and Lucas Reichel, his 10th assist of the year. And then with 8 seconds to go in the second period, this was a brutal time for the Hawks. The Lightning capitalized to bring them within 1. The Hawks led 3-2 going into the second period intermission this game. Now, what happened in the third? How did the Hawks lose this? third period was quiet until the Hawks were called for a tripping call 17 minutes into the third period. They had 3 minutes left, got called with a tripping call. Alec Martinez tripped former Blackhawk Brandon Hagel, who was with the team for 3 years. If you recognize that name, Dan, Brandon Hagel was with that team for a while. He was a great player. Did get signed with the Lightning and traded off with the Blackhawks. With a minute to go in the period, Tampa Bay found the back of the net to tie the game up at 3 goals apiece. Now, tied at 3 apiece going into after the third, Hawks ended up having the Lightning forced overtime, but 1 minute into overtime, Nikita Kucherov scored his 23rd goal of the season for the Lightning. Hawks ended up losing, blowing a 2-goal lead. Lightning's win 4-3 that game. Dan, you want to talk about the stats with this game a little bit?
Yeah, I watched the end of this game, and it's heartbreaking because I think a big fashion of the season is finishing. The Blackhawks are having trouble finishing. And right as I saw that goal go in to lead us into overtime, I just knew in my head, I go, there's a certain level of intensity that the Blackhawks will not have in any other extra period that the other team is always going to have. And that's a really big disadvantage for us. So obviously it's that's also with being a younger team, but it did suck to see us lose a minute into the overtime because that's definitely not the way that they want to go fighting, especially when they have a good lead. So the Hawks were outshot 40-14. 40-14.
That's a big margin, man.
Crazy margin. That's more than double, and that's obviously not at all going to win you games, which is still surprising because in hockey there's a little bit of a different, leeway in that a team can definitely still win a game by being under half on the shot chart, but that's still not the way that you want to go about things. And so the Hawks allowed 3 power play goals on 3 power play opportunities.
That's the stat that hurt the Hawks this game, is every time the Lightning saw a power play, they ended up scoring. And obviously with that tripping call, 3 minutes left in the third period to get them to tie the game, that was a huge penalty by Alec Martinez. And that was, obviously when the Lightning can capitalize on power play opportunities, and they got 3 goals that game because of it, and their fourth goal came in overtime on that 3-3 overtime. It was a tough break for the Hawks this game.
Horrible break. Yeah.
But yeah, so that's all the stats we got you guys for this game. Obviously, unfortunate loss for the Hawks in overtime. But let's get right to the next game. I know, Dan, you were excited to kind of talk about this game a little bit.
I was a bit excited. There's a little bit of a family rivalry at the moment. My partner and I, as you may know, I'm from Chicago. She is from Minnesota. And so it has nothing to do with her. She does not care about sports, but her family. They are diehard Minnesota fans of all backgrounds. So this game for me was a little bit personal, and obviously it became more personal after we lost. So the Minnesota Wild came to the United Center, and the Hawks lost 4-2. Another one of those games that we just couldn't squeeze out at the end of it. So the Hawks allowed 2 first period goals to the Wild, and the Hawks failed to score in the first period. We were completely shut out. And in the second period, the Wild scored again. Unfortunately for the Hawks, they did not score in the second period either. So this game I did not watch. This game I did not watch because after seeing the score in the first period, I was not very interested in seeing the second period, and I wasn't too interested in hearing from some family members of my girlfriend's side tried to message me about the game because I was trying to ignore it at every point. So going into the second period intermission break, it is 3-0. It is not a great outcome to be coming back out of a timeout. A lot of situational improvement could be done on the coaching at this part, because how are you going to coach a team that's down 3-0 with 1 period left? So we did somewhat of a good job because there was some scoring still on the Blackhawks side that they did not give up all the way. The Hawks scored a minute into the third period to get their first goal of the game. Seth Jones scored on a power play opportunity, his 5th of the season, assisted by Connor Bedard, who received his 30th assist of the season, and Tyler Bertuzzi, who earned his 11th. So very nice to see Connor get his 30th assist of the season so far. That's at least a good start to the third period. 3 minutes later, again, the Hawks scored. So you can kind of see in the level that the coaching did display a little bit of leadership in there. In the
going to that second period intermission, that obviously it's really good. Andres basically told this team, we're down 3, but we can come back. We're not as bad as we are. And, obviously scoring 2 goals, and that great deal for the Hawks.
Yeah, and it's never over. And then Frank Nazar scored his 3rd goal of the season, assisted by Ethan Del Mastro, his first assist of the season from Ethan. And so, unfortunately, that spelled the end of the game for the Hawks. That was all the goals they scored this game. The Wild scored with an empty net opportunity at the end to make it 4-2. Final score, Hawks lose 4-2. Yeah. We were outshot 28-20, which is still outshot, but it's by a little bit less.
At least it's more than the last game, and not 10
Yes.
shots. We had 20
Yeah.
shots, so we doubled that from the last game. So that was good for the Hawks,
Mm-hmm.
And then the face-off battle as well, man. The Hawks winning 50%, 57% of the face-offs. That was a good stat. That's something that we've seen in the talk about the games last week. They haven't been winning a lot of the face-offs, and usually when you win the face-off, you get that offensive attack ability. And winning 57% is good for the Hawks. Just need to get a little bit more. Obviously over 50% is great. Getting a little bit more would be, better. But this is a weird stat, this game, that obviously maybe they were just a little frustrated being down, 3-0. The Hawks had 26 hits on the Minnesota Wild compared to the Wild only having 10 hits on the Hawks. So
very interesting stat. I mean, that's aggression, I guess. So yeah, you definitely want to be a hard hitting team. That's gonna help you win some close games. So still a loss, still a tough loss, especially after an overtime loss to come back and the next team to score up 3 in the first period. Not a very good feeling for the Blackhawks. And obviously a lot of more leadership needs to kind of be drawn up here for the Blackhawks to kind of get a few more road wins here. And speaking of road wins, here we go on a road win ourselves. So Tuesday, January 29th, the Blackhawks went back to play Tampa, only this time in Tampa versus the Lightning. The Hawks won this game. The Hawks won this game 4-1. So that is definitely a more exciting score for us, especially losing this game in overtime the first time around. So the Lightning scored the goal in the first 3 minutes of the first period. The Hawks failed to score again in the first. So you can kind of get an idea of where their their mentality was at this point in the game.
Yeah.
They say, hey, 3 straight games of us being pretty darn bad in the first period. It's time to kind of step up at this point. So with 2 seconds left in the Blackhawks power play, 10 minutes into the second period, Connor Bedard skated right and shot the puck almost parallel to the goaltender, and the puck snuck past the goalie's shoulder. Tyler posted this clip in our NHL chat. What a beautiful goal.
This was awesome.
Highlight of the year.
NHL,
incredible.
Everybody was posting this. This was a great play by Connor Bedard. He saw the opportunity. Obviously, 2 seconds left with the power play. There's only like one more opportunity left. Clearly, with 2 seconds left, he saw a tight window right over the goaltender's shoulder, snuck right past. It was a beautiful shot. Who does that remind you of, man?
Kaner?
I'm not gonna. Yeah, it does remind you of Patrick
Kaner. I know. Yeah, it's just squeezing it right on the edge there, on the right edge. So that was a phenomenal goal, man.
That was awesome.
Gosh, beautiful to watch. So I kept rewatching that. I had everyone messaging me this goal, and I'm like, I've seen it, bro. I watched it. So it's nice to get that goal in there. This was Bedard's 14th goal this season. It was assisted by Seth Jones, which was his 14th assist, and Nick Foligno, his 11th assist. Yeah. So definitely getting more goals there on the Bedard train. So hop on while you can.
Yeah, so basically, that great, Bedard kind of rolling with that goal helped the Hawks, get some momentum. And because of that, the Hawks weren't done scoring in that second period. With 2 minutes left in the period, Landon Slaggert scored his first goal of the season, assisted by Lucas Reichel, his 11th assist of the season. And going into that second period intermission break, the Hawks were up 2-1 against the Lightning. So good job, being up. We have seen the Hawks blow leads, 2 leads. We just talked, or 2 goals. We talked about that with the last game against the Lightning. And now they're up 2-1. So we just got to hold that lead. In the third quarter, this was a great third quarter for the Hawks because it was all the Hawks. Ryan Donato scored his 15th goal of the season 8 minutes into the third period, assisted by Seth Jones, his 18th, and Philip Kurashev, his 4th assist of the season. And at the end of the third period, the Lightning decided to pull their goaltender to try to mount the comeback. But Teuvo Teravainen scored the Hawks on an empty net opportunity, assisted by Jason Dickinson, his 8th. That would be it, folks. Hawks beat the Lightning 4-1. Great win, bounce back win for the Hawks. Obviously, giving up that 2-goal lead against the Lightning 2 games ago, keeping that goal lead against the Lightning 2 games later. That is a great win for the Lightning. The Hawks were outshot this game 35-21, but they took advantage of the opportunities when given. The Hawks only won 40% of the faceoffs this game. So faceoff winning didn't matter for the Hawks since they got that win. The Hawks scored on 1 power play opportunity, and this was the best stat of the game, in my opinion. The Hawks goalie, Arvid Soderblom, got 34 saves against the Lightning. He was very efficient, did very well. Good for Soderblom. And
a lot of the social media was giving him a shout out because he definitely had one of those not a career game, but it's definitely a game that you can understand that he deserved that win just as much as the teams that played offensively, the players that played offensively. So yeah, phenomenal win.
Yeah,
Very
great
exciting
game.
to see.
Great game.
And so then we have the next 3 games coming up, including tea time in 2.5 hours is your next Hawks game if you guys are excited. So right after this, go ahead, give yourself an hour to make some dinner, go get some dinner and sit down and watch this Hawks game because the Hawks are in Carolina versus the Carolina Hurricanes. That game starts at 6 p.m. tonight. So make sure to go out and watch. I think I will be having it streaming on my phone while I'm working here. And then on the 1st, on Saturday, Hawks are playing the Florida Panthers in Florida, which is, as Tyler specified earlier in the season, a very tough game, very tough matchup for the Hawks. And then on the 5th, Wednesday of February, Hawks are versing the Edmonton Oilers back home in the United Center, which if you know the Oilers, they also have been a little bit up and down, but that's also another tough scheduling here for the Hawks. So it is 3 games, 3 games that are definitely on the radar. If we could squeeze out 1 win out of these 3 games, then that's a very good look for the Blackhawks.
So yeah, looking at like the standings right now with the next 3 teams that the Hawks are playing, obviously talk about the Hurricanes. The Hurricanes are 2nd in the Metropolitan Division, so it's a tough game at 66 points. They're right below the Capitals. And then, with the Florida Panthers are number 1 in the Atlantic Division with 63 points. And talking about the Edmonton Oilers, they're playing pretty well right now. They're the 1st place in the Pacific Division with 67 points. They're tied with the Golden Knights. So tough 3-game stretch for the Blackhawks, but anything could happen. Clearly, we got a win against the Lightning. We came short against the Wild, and then came short against the Lightning again. But we've seen the Hawks perform very well against good teams, and then not performing well against the teams that they should get wins for. So expect anything out of these Hawks. Expect anything out of any Chicago team. That's what I say.
As long as Connor is wearing a Blackhawks jersey, you can you'll know that he'll at least have himself a good game. And so if he's gonna keep himself in the game, then he'll keep the Hawks in the game.
Yeah,
that's all I can say.
I agree. So that's all we got for you guys with the Blackhawks. There was just 3 games to wrap or talk about with you guys. Obviously, like Dan said, tonight we got the Hawks taking on the Hurricanes at believe at 6 o'clock. Check that game out. Should be an interesting one. We'll see what happens with them. And yeah, so that's all we got for you guys with the Blackhawks chat. So to end off our podcast, we're going to talk about other news in the Chicago sports world. What kind of, obviously a little bit of baseball, other new news kind of flowing around as well. And we'll end off the podcast with some fun facts with you guys. So let's get into some other Chicago sports news. So talking about the first news we got for you guys is that the Dallas Cowboys signed former Bears head coach Matt Eberflus as their new defensive coordinator. And how does this kind of correlate? Why did the Cowboy, obviously it correlates because he was the head coach for the Bears, but also why did he sign with Dallas? Eberflus was the linebackers coach in Dallas from 2011 to 2017 for 6 years. I did not know this. I looked up. I had no idea.
I had some. I knew a little bit that he was a resident of Dallas in his career before Indianapolis. I messaged my friend Joey, who was a diehard Cowboys fan, to kind of first I laughed at him. First I looked at him and I laughed at him and I told him, "Hey, Flus,
good luck.
You were gonna have Flus there. Good luck." But then he looked back at me. He said, "Just wait and see. This is the most underrated hiring of the season." And I go, "Why do you think that?" And he said, "Well, Matt Eberflus not only has spent time in Dallas, but he's also coming back to a very, very strong defense that wasn't coached by a Dan Quinn. So he is very excited that he thinks Matt Eberflus is the perfect fit. And the same way that we're looking at Dennis Allen, he is a coach with head coach experience that knows how to work with quarterbacks, that knows how to work on offense. So he is definitely going to be. I will say this about Eberflus: he's definitely learned a lot more than much other Chicago coaches after they get fired or released. He is on the up. I don't think his career is going to go down anymore. I think his career is just going to go up from at this point. So that changed my mindset a little bit. At first, I was like, oh my gosh, Flus is going to defensive coordinator. Oh no. And then I realized, okay, you know what? Cowboys fans are a little bit high on Matt Eberflus, knowing that he was still available. So that might be a good sign for them. Who knows?
I think it's a great sign for Dallas. He was a great defensive coordinator for the Indianapolis Colts before he came to Chicago. Obviously, he's one of those people, like we talked about, sometimes some of these coordinators aren't the best head coaches. Obviously he didn't do that well for Chicago, but I think this is a great hire by Dallas. He was amazing coordinator, for the Colts, with, I can't think of, the edge rusher's name off the Colts right now. Oh my gosh. Can't think of his name, but that Colts defense was really good this year. But yeah,
the Buckner Forest.
DeForest Buckner.
The Buckner Forest.
Very close on that. Oh my god.
I watch football.
But I think this is a great hire for Dallas. I wish nothing but the best for Matt Eberflus. He tried
so do I.
his best. He did. He just wasn't good with time management with Chicago. Wish none but the best for him and his family in Dallas for what future holds would.
And this seems like home for him. I think this is definitely where he ends up finishing his career. I'm rooting for the guy. But here's the very important part after this, and then we'll move on to the next one because there's a lot of other Chicago sports to talk about. The Bears play Dallas next year at home. The Bears play Dallas at home next year.
Reunion.
The reunion will happen, and Ben Johnson has an opportunity to do the really funniest thing ever, and that's call the craziest offensive game ever, dude. Like that's think about it. Like
fumble, the fake fumble.
Yeah, like it's so hard to think about. Ben Johnson is going to have to play offense against Matt Eberflus, and Matt Eberflus is going to have Micah Parsons, right? He's going to have a good defense, so it's going to be quite interesting to see how that goes. But definitely a reunion is necessary. Even though Matt Eberflus wasn't the best coach, we did enjoy most of the time he had here in Chicago.
Thank you, NFL, for making this happen. Thank you so much.
Thank you, NFL.
We got a few more news for you guys. Let's get right into a little bit of baseball with the MLB. So this is a big trade for the Cubs. The Chicago Cubs finalized a trade to acquire closer Ryan Pressly from the Houston Astros. And this happened. It was rumored and it took a few days. It was up to Pressly if he wanted to waive his no trade clause to come to Chicago. And Pressly decided to waive his no trade clause to basically come to the city of Chicago to be on the Cubs. And Houston will send some money over to help cover his $14 million salary. And in exchange for that, the Cubs sent right-hand pitcher Juan Bello in a trade who was doing really well in the minors. So this was a great move for the Cubs. I'm really excited by this. You finally got a closer. It was Cubs last year try to figure out who to be their closer. Now we have a closer. I'm really excited by this hire for the Cubs. I really am.
Yeah. It's a good look.
And then we got one more Cubs news for you guys. This was actually, this broke yesterday on Twitter. A lot of people are talking about this. The Cubs announced a new seating area at Wrigley yesterday called the Yard. And this is going to be replacing where the ADA section was in center field. And this is going to be a new, basically a new club seating for the Cubs. It will be located in center field, and it's including high top seats, a ballpark meal, unlimited beer, wine, seltzers, and non-alcoholic drinks for up to 40 to 50 people.
Dave, if you guys are on social, sure, why not? If you guys are on social media, I highly go to look at the designs that they created for this because it looks pretty cool. And I think it's it's going to fit another, 50 to 60 people in that area. But you know what, Tyler? I think that's going to be pretty exciting. We have a chat, right, where there's a few members of you and the people you work for, and I know obviously we can't cover all that we can on the Cubs. But a few of the renderings were kind of funny because a few of you were saying, hey, this rendering's funny, but where's the camera going to go? Because there's usually a spot for camera right there.
Camera shack, they got painted a different color. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, so definitely a lot of changes are going to happen there for you and the team, per se. But the Yard, I love the name of it. The Yard is very, really cool. So I highly recommend go seeing the renderings of it. It's not going to change a lot, but it looks pretty cool. Yep. And that's not the only news we have for changes that will be happening at stadiums in Chicago for baseball, right? The White Sox plan to do a little change to their whole renovation park. And it's not renovating the park. It's renovating one particular important statue, and that is adding Tyler, I know you're excited about this because I'm
very excited by this.
You have a good lineage in your family of Sox fans, right? I know your family is a huge Sox contributor.
My grandpa's a huge Sox fan. He's always been a Sox fan, and this is really cool because one of the few guys to ever throw a perfect game ever in history, Mark Burley, he is going to be honored with a statue outside of now it's called Rate Field. He's going to be honored with a statue out there. It's going to be on January 11th. And it's going to celebrate the Sox 2005 World Series winning team on January 11th. So this is going to be a really cool moment. I know you texted me about this. Let's go to this game. If I am not working that day, I would love to see this. This would be awesome. Mark Burley's well-deserved of this. He's going to have his name, or I believe he has his name up in there as one of the retired. I'm not 100% sure. I got to look that up. More of those names probably on the press box, but super cool moment. I'm excited to see this, and well-deserved for Mark Burley. He was one of the best pitchers for the White Sox during that era.
Yeah, it would be so exciting to go see that because we don't know how many statues will be built in Chicago, especially in our young careers. So that will definitely be an exciting thing to go see. I think people are going to be sleeping on the idea of going to see a statue opening, but I would be very excited to see
Mark
that.
Burley did have his number retired by the White Sox in 2017. Just looked it up to confirm that. So
good. 7 years ago. Still early enough. Do it again. Why not?
Yeah. And last thing we have for you guys, and this is still on the same White Sox news, this is kind of cool. Cubs haven't announced theirs yet, but the White Sox just announced their 2025 promotional schedule for all the giveaways at the stadium. A lot of people love the White Sox giveaways, and some of the items, I wish I can pop pictures up. I'm still trying to figure that out with, the podcast and stuff like that. Some of the items are really cool, and I think the White Sox, knock it out of the park with a lot of their items. One of them is a Ken Griffey Jr. bobblehead. This was a item that a lot of people, I think the first 8,000 people, a lot of people are going to want to get that. But the next item that I'm talking about, got a lot of buzz over Twitter. I think this is probably going to resell for a lot of money on eBay and all that stuff. The White Sox are making a 1959 Comiskey Park radio. That's going to be an actual working AM FM radio for people to use. It's really cool. Love the idea.
It's shaped like the park, right? So you look inside of it, you see the diamond and everything. It's really cool, and it's actually not that small. So it's a pretty hefty thing. It's a little bit larger than a mug, per se. So that is very exciting. I don't know if the resale value is going to be enough for me to pay for, so I might have to pay for the game. Might have to pay for the ticket to go get it.
Be there early. That's all I gotta say.
Never know.
Be there early. A few more giveaways we got written down for you guys is the Ozzie Guillen bobblehead. That's going to be really exciting. I think a lot of people are going to be there to get that. And another big one, obviously, we just talked about the Mark Burley statue bobblehead is going to be a giveaway as well, the day of the Mark Burley statue. So, and there's a lot more giveaways. We're not going to list, all 30 different giveaways, t-shirts and, polos and all that other stuff. But those are some of the key giveaways that the White Sox are going to be doing this for their promotional giveaway. When we get the Cubs giveaways, we'll definitely give that information to you guys with more of the other Chicago sports news with you guys. But that's all we got for you guys with Chicago sports news, kind of wrapping that up. And to finish off this podcast, let's get into some Chicago sports fun facts that we'd like to finish off.
The good part. Yeah, let's get to the fun part. Yeah.
And I know you did not see this until I put this in the document with you. Yeah. I think this is an interesting stat. This is an awesome stat. So, fun fact. The Chicago Bears currently have 12 players on their roster that are older than the new offensive coordinator for the Bears, Declan Doyle. That is crazy, man.
That is crazy.
Yeah. I said 14. 12 players that are, older than him. Mercedes Lewis, the tight end for the Bears, was 12 years old when Declan Doyle was born. Crazy.
So that means by the time Declan Doyle was learning how to, walk and speak, Mercedes Lewis was already training for his high school team. That realistically, so
that's crazy.
Yeah, that's absolutely wild. So Tyler put that one in. I had no idea. I mean, I knew Declan was young, but I definitely didn't. Looking into a lot of the teams, he was definitely the youngest in the league. So gives you perspective.
Yeah.
The other fan fact that we added on here.
This is a pretty fun one. I love this. I like this.
This one I didn't even know myself. We did a little bit of research beforehand, like we usually do together, and just kind of finding what we think is fun for you guys. So the largest crowd to ever be at Wrigley Field, and I mean overall crowd, even though this was at a baseball game, was on July 30th, 1930. There was 51,556 fans that attended the game. But since it was Ladies' Day that day in 1930, July 30th. Oh, no, sorry, January 30th. I had written down July 30th. January 30th, only 19,000 tickets were actually paid and funded. So that's a pretty interesting, thing that I think the reason why there were so many people is because it was partly free. Yep. Not everyone paid for a ticket to even get into the game. So
it's an awesome stat, man.
We should bring that back. I think that'd be very, very cool idea to have Ladies' Day back. I don't know how many games are being played, or maybe I was just wrong. Maybe this wasn't January 30th because they would not be playing January 30th.
July 30th. Yeah, they would not be playing January.
Well, you know what? That's just still a fun fact. It doesn't have to be about the day, but it's still just a fun fact.
It's a cool fact. And I got the last fun fact for you guys. This is really cool. I was looking up different fun facts today. So we're gonna try to do a little thing where the last fun fact for you guys, we'll try to do like on this day in Chicago sports history to leave you guys with something pretty cool. So on this day in Chicago sports history in 1969, the Chicago Blackhawks obliterated the Philadelphia Flyers by a score of 12-0. 12-0, which is crazy for a hockey game. The first of 6 Blackhawks goals were scored in the first period, and Chicago proceeded to score 3 times in each of the following frames, 3 times in the second period and 3 times in the third period. So give them a final score 12-0 against the Philadelphia
Insane
Flyers
score.
in 1969.
You do not see many scores like that nowadays. So
Yeah.
that is definitely appreciate that. And while you're sitting there watching the Hawks play today on, again, January 30th, I wonder if we could replicate a similar stand-up show 12-0 against the Hurricanes. Hopefully.
Let me bet the alt spread right now on the Hawks for that. But
thank you, Todd, for providing that. That is a very, very lovely.
No, thank you for
lovely
that
fact
that
there.
Wrigley Field stat, man. That was really cool. But that is going to do it
so
for
much
us,
Chicago
guys.
sports.
Yeah, there is. We obviously we love talking about the different, like the UC chat that we started to incorporate last week with you guys, talking about the Bulls and the Hawks since Bears season kind of slowing down a little bit. Obviously we talked about coaching hires with the Bears and stuff like that. But we love we love now bringing you guys, the UC chat, Hawks and Bulls. We'll, summarize all the games for you, figure out why they won, why they lost, everything like that. And whenever we get done, other, Chicago sports news that's flown around Twitter or anywhere with that, we'll definitely bring that to you guys. But before we end off, Dan, is there anything you want to say?
Nothing much other than, All-Star Weekend's coming up very, very soon. And so we don't know who exactly the reserves are yet. It would be lovely to see Zach LaVine's name up on there. But also, Matas Vazelis was going to be your slam dunk contestant,
which will be
upcoming.
Will be awesome.
That's going to be very, very exciting. He is going up against another rookie in Stephon Castle. So I would advise everyone to go watch that and root for Chicago, because it's not often that we get someone in any of the skill challenges. So that's going to be very, very exciting to see Matas in there, and a good rep for him in his rookie year.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm really excited. Obviously NBA is going to be, shaping up the next few weeks with the trade deadline. We'll catch you guys up with the biggest trades with that as well. Maybe seeing if the Bulls are involved with any. And, that means also the NHL trade deadline is coming up. Taylor Hall just got traded off the Blackhawks. I forgot to put that in there. But Taylor Hall just got traded off the Blackhawks to, I forgot which team it was, but yeah. Basically to end off this podcast, we're going to tell you guys, if you guys aren't up to anything tonight, try to catch that Blackhawks game. It should be a fun one. And, every week we're going to bring you guys the best with the Bulls, the Hawks, bring you guys up to date with all the Bears coaching hires. And, like we just said, bring you guys with the different Chicago sports news, ending off with some fun facts for you guys, which we love. So we love doing this podcast. We love bringing you guys the best of the news with that. And we love when you guys, comment, subscribe, comment, like, you guys can subscribe. We love that. And we will try to, every week we'll try to improve. You guys can tell us what we can do to improve the podcast. And we love bringing this news to you guys. We do.
Of course. And we'll talk to you guys next week. We'll see you Thursday, Friday.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much. Enjoy the weekend. Enjoy the games this weekend. And then we'll be back with you guys next week, probably toward the end of the week, recapping those games for you guys. And as always, bear down.
Bear down, guys.
You see something?
How about just a W for Cubs?
W's
easy.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Enjoy your weekend.
See you guys.
Dope.
Yeah, that went by for 14 pages. That's the quickest we've went, I think, ever. So that was lovely.
And it was right around an hour.